Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Aaron's Reading Room. Welcome to the Reading Room Book Club. This is for March 2023. We are talking The Warded Man by Peter V. Brett. This one was Ryan's pick, so all blame can be laid at his feet.
Wow. Just throwing Ryan underneath the bus
Yeah.
right at the start.
Not even waiting.
Yeah,
I
no,
know.
all in good fun. All in good fun, I swear.
Yeah.
I think this is our first fantasy book that we've done. I think.
I guess Octavia Butler's just considered sci-fi, right?
Yeah, I'd consider that one more sci-fi, though it did have.
Okay, yeah, it's more
Yeah,
sci-fi.
It
yeah,
had moments.
You can argue like futuristic
Right.
fantasy sci-fi.
Yeah.
You can argue.
Yeah.
You can argue it.
Both of those seem to like coexist a lot in books, fantasy and sci-fi.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this one's like post-apocalyptic, so it's like
Yeah.
future-ish sci-fi, but like in a broken down world where magic works again.
Yeah.
If it ever did.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some initial thoughts?
I was so confused for like 90% of it.
Really?
I was just like, I started like actually caring about some of the characters, and then they would move somewhere else. I'm like, but I don't, but go back here.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I agree with you, Alicia. I listened to the regular audiobook, got 2 chapters in, I was like, I have no idea what's
I
happening.
did the same. You told me to do the other audio, and
So then I did the graphic audio at like
Yeah.
1.2, and then I was able to get into it. I was like, okay. The way it's written is a little bit dry for my taste. And he switches perspectives a lot,
Too
which
much.
I didn't love. Like, the book to me read like a prequel to the actual story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt like
I
we
think
were
for like
missing
80% of the book, they're like kids.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
And Lord, how did I hate Arlen? I hated him.
That makes me feel so much better that I'm not the only one.
When he found like the two surrogate parents and how they cared for him, and he was just like, I hate you. I was like,
You're not my
and
mother.
the way he left them, and the woman that he loved, I was like, dude, you're an ass.
Just
Like, I
think
get
of it
you're
as
trying to
dark
do your
romance,
He's
right?
Teen.
no,
He
but
was
he's trying to do his
selfish.
Batman thing, but it like he's just selfish. Just like, can't someone kill him already? Leisha and Bruna were like the only reason why I stuck to the book. And then I find out what they did to Bruna off page. I was like,
Uh-huh.
I hate
Yep.
you, Peter. Like, Bruna was such a cool character. And you're just like, oh yeah, she died. Off page.
Yeah. But that just, cinches the tragedy so much more for Alicia, right? It's because she couldn't even be there at the end.
Can we talk about how Alicia gets sexually assaulted and then
Yeah.
turns around and like wants to jump Arlen's
I
bones?
did not
I
like
did not
that.
care for that. I was like, I can tell a dude.
Yeah.
I can tell like a dude, old fantasy dude
Yeah.
wrote this a little bit.
Mhm.
I was like, really?
An old white
But
man.
at the same time, everyone responds to those kind of situations very differently. You like that's like, if you knew someone that was sexually assaulted and then did something like that, would you really shame them for it? Like, I'm not saying it's typical. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if, you look at people that have had those experiences and then they do, if they don't get therapy and stuff, they react in ways that you're like, that doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own experience. So I mean, it just is what it is. I don't think one way or the other. It's just
The insta love
like,
thing was weird.
I think that my problem was because it happened with Jared and the whole rumor. I thought Alicia's storyline was based around her like sexual status.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And then,
Right.
so like when that happened, I was like, okay, you really don't know where to go with Alicia's character. Because like, wasn't she like at one point Reginald, the other dude character, like they were supposed to have a thing for a little bit?
Oh, Roger.
Roger.
Yeah.
Roger
Yeah,
barely got
I mean,
enough POVs in this book. I was like,
I was so
he
confused on who was
barely got
who.
any.
he's
I was like, Roger?
he's a wounded puppy that just follows Leisha around, like being scorned by unrequited love.
Like, she's
But
27 and you're 16, sir. Go away. Sit down.
I know.
Sit down.
But
yeah,
Peter started to get a little spicy with this book. I was like, okay, I see you.
it yeah, I'll try not to talk too much about the sequels because I did like the world building in this. I
It was
really
interesting.
I really don't care for a lot of the mechanisms used for the way the way the story is told and for how the characters develop. Like the using this like you said, Charles, the whole thing about Leisha and how many people were obsessed about her sexual status. Like it's like so many people are like, oh come on, why don't you just have sex already?
Like, you're
Why
27, you're gonna
people
your
care?
flowers
You're
are gonna fall off the
27, you're
bloom or whatever.
Oh my god! And the flower analogy, the flower. Oh my god! I groaned so hard. And when I posted the graphic for this live, an author friend of mine DM'd me, and it's like, "Oh my god, is that the one with that awful flower analogy?"
And it was said multiple times. I'm like, I want to I just want to throw up. Like, can we not?
And then
It
just to
wasn't published
have,
that long ago. Can we use some other terminology or something?
yeah, and
I
then
guess
to
in
just have
my
her
mind,
assaulted.
as
It's
far as that goes, like the whole flower analogy, it kind of goes back to like what society was turned into. It was basically like high school in every single town where everyone
Yeah.
was in each other's business and everyone was judging each other despite the fact that they knew, oh, hey, you know, this person was running around with this person and this person ran around with this, but then they're going to judge this person over here. Like, to me, it just seems like more of like that world building of like, this is kind of what society has devolved into, you know, where these small towns, it's like freaking high school and middle school. And oh, this person had sex with this person. Well, this person said this.
Yeah.
This one's the town hoe or whatever. Like,
Right, even though the person calling her the hoe was the ones that had slept around or had a baby that was not with her husband.
Exactly.
yeah, or her own mother, you know.
Oh my goodness, her mother.
Her mother was awful. Like,
Like,
every person
literally
around her
Yeah,
was
with another
awful.
dude while
the
she's
worst human
married.
yeah.
And and Ernie has to go like, you better step in line and get in that house. And then she's like, okay, I don't want to live on the outskirts of town. Bump you,
Right.
Steve.
But like, you have to have some balls to like sleep with another man while your husband can hear you. Like,
And wasn't that other? I always forget his name. Roger, right?
Roger, yeah.
His mother was about to sleep with a jongleur
Right? Yeah.
before she was killed.
Well, I
was
mean,
like, I'm getting
it
a
wasn't
very
a
like,
sweet song, right?
I'm not getting the best viewpoint of women in this world.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
men, like some of the things that Arlen did, I was like when he ran away from his father, and then I'm like, dude, I was like, I get you trying to do like the Batman-esque thing with him, but it really doesn't work because like some of the things he does, I was like, he's kind of a dick. Like not only a good like romance where I can like justify it, where he can justify it, but I'm just like, especially when he left that girl that really loved
What was
him.
her name? Maggie or something?
Was it Gwen or
Mary.
something?
Yeah, Mary. That was it.
And
I was
his
like,
surrogate
dude,
parents,
you could be
Alicia.
nice.
He wasn't
what he
going
did-
to settle down and just join the clergy or do whatever. That like, yeah, that I yeah, I mean, I don't agree with a lot of the decisions he made, but yeah, I and how he left her wasn't okay, but I was fine with him peacing out because I was ready for something to freaking happen in the story at that point. I was like, okay, we've done the rags story. We've done the climbing out of rags story. It's like let's get to something here. Like you said, it seemed like this book was all a lead up to the next book, or most of it.
Yeah, it felt like a very long prologue.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
Exactly.
I would even say the second book is also part of that. It's just like, oh my gosh.
Really?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
many- how
Even
many
with
are
the
in the
ending,
series?
like where they said
Yeah.
like the real
yeah.
deliverer is
Oh.
on the scene, that's not kicking off the plot.
Well, hold on, because
that a
we've got
misdirect?
to learn Jardir's rags to riches story at the beginning of the
that
first
one was
book.
so painful for
I'm out.
me.
I'm out.
Dude, I was just like, do not care.
And then the third book starts out with Jardir's first wife's origin story. Just follow her from a
in the series.
Okay, I realized like that's the thing that really started to irk me with this book, is that the plot is really circular. Characters go to a village gets attacked, somehow their parents die, they move on to the next village, another quarreling attack. We still don't really know how to defeat, and we get like little interesting tidbits here and there. But when I finished the book, I was like, I really don't know like what the goal of the series is.
Yeah.
And I felt I never read a fantasy book that was like that before.
You've never read
So
The
I was
Wheel
like,
of Time?
okay, I just
Right.
watched
The
the
Wheel of
TV
Time is really
show.
bad.
Right.
It's very
just watched-
Wheel of Time reductive. That's the kind of vibe I got.
Because I'm
I
used to
only
like
read
a
the first
fantasy
two
book,
because I don't care.
like setting up the world and like
Yeah.
you know the arc of the series by the first book. This one, like I have no idea where we're going. And like, how many books is this? Like 5 or 6?
5, I think.
Oh my goodness!
Is it?
And
is it
he
done
does a
at this time, or
prologues.
is it?
Yes,
Is
it's
it done? Okay.
Yeah.
At least it's
I
finished.
mean, the thing is like I don't even think anyone liked it when George R.R. Martin put too many point of view characters in his books. Like, so it's like I'm not saying Peter's copying him or trying to be like him, but there's just I don't know. There were a lot of mechanisms I didn't like of changing
Yeah.
point of view characters when something gets interesting to just like build tension or whatever. Yeah, and switch it. Yeah, and in the book transition to the second book, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you know how we really got going on where that story was going. All right, hold the phone. We're gonna go to this other.
And then we'll circle back, and then we'll do a time jump because we need to get them older, and now they're all adults.
Well, no,
It just felt-
it starts to do dual timeline. So you
No!
jump back and forth.
No.
Yeah.
It's like I actually like this book. I gave it a 4.
I gave
Like,
it
I'm
3 because I didn't know how I felt about it.
Like I'm legitimately interested, but the way he tells,
Yeah.
like Aaron, like what you said, the way he constructs the story is so frustrating.
It just sounded like it was just one run-on sentence. It felt like nobody took a breather. I was like, because I didn't look at it physically, so I don't know how it was written. I was like, what is going on here?
The graphic audio made it a better experience because then
Yeah.
like you heard like the quarrelings and the sound effects and all that stuff, so it made it a little bit more interesting to get through with, especially the actors who play Bruna. It was so much fun. It was like an old witch cackle to her voice.
That was the best
part.
part.
So much fun.
Nice.
Like the whole Alicia, the acting in there was just so good. So like that kept me through the book. The original audiobook, I was like, I don't know how you guys did it. It's like dry, one dude just narrating. I was like, oh, I can't do this. Especially because it started off so young. When you follow Alicia, I was like, I thank goodness we had like a female voice.
Yeah, I managed to do the audiobook fine. The only parts that like, because I was doing about 2x speed, when it got to like the crazy names and stuff, it was just like I'm not really paying attention to these names.
Yeah.
Just because they're so Middle Eastern sounding and
bonkers.
Stuff. Like they're just hard to follow, especially when you got the speed up there.
And how about taking like the worst aspects of Middle Eastern culture and just building that society all around?
Yeah.
Really?
I was like, ouch.
It's a little painful, but it's also interesting in that I feel like it's that like, okay, you boil it down and you put them in these bleak circumstances, what's going to come out of it? Where like with the Krasian viewpoint was that, the most honorable thing you can do is fight and kill these demons, sort of thing, where it's like it's all about that like holy battle type of thing. And I can't remember if they talk about it much in the first book, but even they realize that it's not really working out for their population. They used to number in the hundreds of thousands. Now there's only tens of thousands in the you know and where I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, things probably have to change at some point if they want to succeed in existing.
I don't know how their working class hadn't just like revolted at that point, or just like sat down and stopped working, because it's like, you're gonna treat us like shit, like fine, you don't get clothes, you don't get weapons, like,
and then we can't leave our house after the sun goes down because something's gonna kill us and chew us up or whatever.
Well, I think that kind of speaks to the fear that he was trying to instill in the novel. Like all of humanity feared these creatures. Like, could you imagine like if you couldn't go out after dark, or okay, what happens if you get caught out outside after dark?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Where these people were literally, I don't remember if it was in the first book or later on, but there's, descriptions of, people basically being catatonic after having close run-ins with these demons and stuff, where they were just, it was a very traumatic experience. And I think that's kind of like where it was world building, how that fear controlled the society. From Arlen's dad being too scared to, save his mom, to, on the individual level, and then how it affected society as a whole, and how that kind of created that feudal system that kind of worked out, where most people didn't go out or, go beyond one day's ride out of town.
Yeah, kind of like little prisons.
Yeah.
I think that's what Arlen was trying to get at, but I think the way his motivation came about didn't quite work for me. But I get what but when you put in that context, it is kind of like you're in these prisons, like, especially with the guards in that city, that the main town. I forgot the name of the main town in the first book, but they would watch the wards and see how the demons would try to. This is when Arlen was with Alytha. I can't remember.
I can't remember if it was
city.
Milne or Angiers.
I think it was Milne.
Milne.
I think it was Milne.
Yeah. Angiers was when they were older. Yeah.
Yeah. Angiers is where Roger and Leisha went to.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, with that,
they do get in, and then chaos ensues.
Well, right, and it was that kind of complacency, like, okay, I'm safe behind my wards. I don't need to worry about, anything while I'm inside here. And then when something did go sideways, it was like you realized, hey, these people that are guards weren't really guards. They were just morons that didn't know how to fight.
Yep. That I got more out of your little explanation there than
thank you.
Brett delivered.
Yeah, the way you I was like, that makes so much more sense than actually reading it. You're like, I get it, but like,
he didn't really capture that, like you're saying, the fear of the demons. Like, he didn't illustrate that very well, because after a while you're just like, oh yeah, you hide behind the wards, whatever.
You're fine.
It's like,
I feel like they pull like the Disney. He pulled like the Disney effect, like killing off the main character's parents, or somehow like separating them, or having something horrible happen to them. It's like it happened to all three characters, so I got pretty like desensitized to the Coraline attacks. I was like, okay, whatever. They're gonna chomp, kill, and then by the morning.
And then all of a sudden, music is playing, and they don't kill things.
And then Roger was like, "Oh, I wish he explained that a little bit more to see that." Can we say like he made a really dumb decision when they stopped in a town? It's like, "Oh yeah, I got this ward circle and all this stuff." I was like,
right. I was like, whatever's gonna happen is not gonna be good.
Like, oh my god, yeah. There was some naivete happening. Well, like when Arlen found the spear, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna go to these warriors and show off this awesome spear that the entire world's been looking for hundreds of years. Like, they're totally gonna let me keep it, right?"
Right. Oh god, I have things to say about the other books too.
Please
Like,
tell, because I'm not going to read them, so you can
I'm
spoil
gonna
them all
read
you
them.
want.
I'm actually gonna read them because I'm actually
Really?
interested.
Brett has what happened to Leisha happens to a lot of characters.
See, I don't like
a
that.
lot. It's
I
yeah,
hate
it's
I hate that
Stop.
that's written into a lot of older fantasy. Like that's their plot arc.
Yeah. The worst part about this one is that it was used as a plot device, but it wasn't even used as a plot device for Leisha's character. It was so that Leisha could remind Arlen that he
About
wasn't doing
his-
enough.
He
that
was
he was
a
giving something
sniveling.
to the Corlings.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh
Right.
my god, we have
But that whole area pissed me off because I'm like, you keep on saying how young he is. He made it like he did a young thing and it happened, and you're gonna blame him for it? Like, he's 16. Like, what do you expect?
I feel like this is where reading romance prepares you to dissect things like this. You're like, hold up, like, hold my beer. What did you just do?
yeah.
It was
But
just
no, like going
a
into
lot.
some of the other books, like basically the Crasian leader believes that he's supposed to be the deliverer, and there's some subtle hints that like he thinks he is, his wife thinks he is, and his wife has been consulting these demon bones that somewhat tell the future. It just says that like the deliverer is going to need help, and she just assumes that her husband is the deliverer.
Well, isn't that a lot of religions? Like, everything's just vague and
Oh,
people can read
yeah.
it.
And I mean it does just go right into that religion stuff, like and even in some of the later books, I think it's funny because, oh man, it is just so the ridiculousness of Christianity, and like where the organized religion is just like, thinking the deliverer is there to overthrow their religion or something, and it's just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
More reason for me to be like, nope, calling it.
Yeah.
Nope.
I feel like I'm committed at this point, and honestly, like starting book 3, I actually do like A.R.R. That's Jardir, the Crasian deliverer. That's his wife, his first wife. But I'm actually starting to really like her character, getting to know more about her.
I really like. It's the first time I've listened to graphic audio. I'm like, I want to find more of these graphic audios. Like, they're fantastic.
It
Yeah,
really
I like the whole
helps.
cast.
The only thing is you can't listen if you want to read it alongside the book. I think they only do this with the first book for a lot of these series. They split up into 2 parts.
Yeah.
So you may want to
Right.
wait, but they don't do that for the rest of the books in the series, and the chapters are different.
Yeah.
So like if you want to read along, you would have to actually like
Look.
really pay attention because
Yeah.
it doesn't line up perfectly with the actual print book. So I think the graphic audio is like 14 chapters in total, but each chapter is like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to try the graphic audio for Sanderson's work because I can't stand Michael Kramer. I know, hot take. I can't stand Michael Kramer.
That's a hot take.
He
just dropped that out of nowhere.
Honestly, he puts me to sleep.
Honestly, most fantasy puts me to sleep. So like that's what like graphic audio get it.
It needs to move. I can't.
That's like some of the scenes where it got a little feisty. I was like, okay. I was like, I see you, Peter. And then you did that scene with Leisha. Like Leisha's still my favorite character.
Yeah, she's the only character that I honestly liked.
Like her with Bruna, that whole time point in the book, I was like, I could just stay here forever. Hope that Arlen died, like in his forest, and I don't have to see him again. But it's like then he came back, and I was like, okay, whatever. We'll accept you.
Every man but Arlen's
like
an a-hole. Like every guy's an a-hole.
Idiot. Yeah.
Like the guy she was supposed to marry was a douche. Like, and no one's allowed to touch you but me. Like, dude, get away.
This happened for years. Like he was still holding all the way up until they're adults. I was like, dude, she's like gone, and you're still like, she's still mine.
No one's allowed to look at you. Go away.
He's waiting for his second chance. That's
yeah.
And he eases up in the later books. He eases up in the later books finally.
He's still alive in the later books.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Peter does do a good job of like that cycle of like, this character's terrible, I hate them. But then if you do give it time, it's like, oh, okay, I can kind of get behind this person now.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's to me, it's like, hey, just take it as a fantasy. It's ridiculous, and
Yeah.
you've got characters that are single-minded, but you also have to look at it from that point of view of like, imagine what humanity is like. Like I said, if they're living in these small hamlets, like you look at someone like Garrett, where it's like, okay, I go and I chop wood during the day, and then we hide at night, and this is going to be my wife. This is all I know. This is all that, like, I can't really read too much. I don't really know much of the world. It's like those people that live in the middle of nowhere where it's like, I've never been to the city. I've never, been on a subway. I've never been in a room with, 2,000 people.
Yeah.
You take people in those situations and they don't know how to act. They're just like, you think about like that reality television where they put the Amish people in New York City type of thing, where it's like they do, I mean, there's issues there, but I mean,
overstimulation.
it's that like they don't know how to behave. So if you think about it, where you're like, oh, I live in this small town and this is how things have been, this is how it is, and then everything changes on these characters, and suddenly you're like, why are they acting like little children? Because we're adults. We live in a modern society. And okay, sorry, I thought my headset died. And so you also have to kind of look at it from that perspective, where the reason they are not smarter is because they're not that smart. They're not that world rounded. Like they don't, this is where it is a very exciting thing to get a letter from the next town over. Where there's worlds are just so small. And I think in, as the books go on and their worlds get bigger and bigger and you kind of see them grow. I mean, is it anything amazing and complex, like nuance, like, oh man, that's so interesting? No, not really. But at the same time, it's kind of that progression of, as the books go on, the world kind of grows for these people and they become a little bit better behaved.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Can I just petition for Ryan just to rewrite the series?
Yes, please.
Add that nuance.
Yeah.
That was there because
and edit the summary. Yeah.
like I appreciated how he took a different take on the first book in the series, but I was just like, if he didn't include that like last like 2 minutes of the audiobook where like, who's this other character? I would have been like, oh, whatever. There's no like immediacy that I want to go read the second book. But now I'm like, okay, I can kind of dig that, but I wish it was more like City of Brass. That's like my gold standard.
I'm reading that next month. I've never read it.
That's my gold standard. Or like, if you want darker, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. That's really dark.
Never heard of either of those.
So Poppy War is...
You would like the Poppy War, I think.
It's really dark. I do have to warn you. It's very dark. And it features a character similar to Arlen, but your enjoyment of whether you like this character depends on how you can justify your actions in book one. I'm not going to give any spoilers away. It's based on like an actual war in Chinese history.
It's based on the rape of Nanking or Nanjing.
Yeah.
However you say
but
that.
it does have magic and
mythology
intertwined. It's a trilogy. It's good. But
I think isn't she based on like Mao or something? The main Rin. I think she's based on like yeah,
that one's good. Or City of Brass is good because like I wish like because that book takes you in and it really builds a plot very quickly as you move throughout the story, and you still get all the interesting world building. But at the end of that first book, you're like, okay, this author clearly has like a beginning, middle, and end to where she wants to take this series. In this book, I was kind of like, I feel like that was just a prologue,
meandering.
Yeah,
it
didn't
definitely
feel like
is a prologue. Like I want to say it's like at the end of the second book that you finally get a point of view that these demons are not just mindless demons either. Like so, but it takes that long just for you to get a split second. You're like, oh, like so there's definitely a lot of world building and a lot of it's not telling you what it knows yet.
I don't hate his world building. I just don't like how he structures the book. the structure of the book is just wonky, and I'm just like, but why, sir?
It definitely feels like there was a lot of pantsing involved.
Right.
Right.
Did you have an editor, sir? To be like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, all that backstory. I was like, do we really need to know Arlen's backstory? I would prefer just to met him as like the grumpy warded dude.
Yeah, right.
I would enjoy this character a lot more if I didn't know how like mean he was. Like he literally just gets people to care about them, then he goes like, yeah, I don't care about you. Okay, bye. Move on to the next.
I like sleeping in your nice house with a nice bed and nice food. Bye.
Alyssa wanted to
Like,
adopt
seriously?
him. I was like, that broke my heart. I was like, she clearly loves him, and he's not even hers, and he's just like, you're not my mom.
You're not my mom.
Like,
I
I felt
like,
that. I was
damn,
like,
dude.
let me reach into this book and just slap Arlen.
Yeah, but I mean, in that kind of situation, like once again, I liken it to real life. Like, how many kids that are, in the foster system, are complete, hellions to their, foster parents because you're not my mom, or because of all the trauma they've been through in their lives. I feel that in my mind, like you may not agree with it, but that's more of the reality of like when I think of all this stuff, like I said, the small towns and just how these people grow up and how they exist, they never mature. They never get the chance to really exist like we do. And it's one of those things where I feel like, yeah, once again, it's just building off that. And these are how these people would realistically act in those situations. Maybe it doesn't make for the best writing or, they're the most, reflective or whatnot, but this is how they would actually act, I think, given in that world.
What time period was this supposed to be? I like went into it thinking like medieval time period, honestly.
Medieval-ish.
Well, so it's supposed to be a medieval time. I don't know how much they talk about it in the first book, but they do talk that, basically kind of the premise is thousands of years ago, humans fought demons and humanity won. And then demons weren't around for like, I think it's like 2,000 or 3,000 years. And that's when science became a thing. And, they don't really allude too much. It kind of feels like more of like they were kind of getting to like early 1900s science. And then the demons showed back up and basically pushed them back into a medieval society.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
See, you need to rewrite this because now that actually makes sense.
They just mentioned that like in like the first couple of chapters very briefly.
Like
for Arlen, they're like, okay, now we move on.
Right. Yeah, that's right. The jongleur told the story.
Yeah, it was like very brief story. I was like, that's where I remember that from, and then it never came back up.
Yeah.
Well, and later on, they also make some brief mentions of like in Milne, one of the dukes hoarding knowledge. Like he has knowledge of like I said, one of the technologies is streetlights. Understands how electricity works or something, and he keeps it for himself. He doesn't let anyone else have it, sort of thing, where even humanity was a detriment to itself because of that greed and that power. Like, okay, if I have this knowledge, I have power over these people.
Yeah.
I just need a Bruna to be a main character.
Yes!
Bruna was great.
So
I love.
Or like a side story where she just kicks ass. I'm totally down.
I'm like, she just hits people. She doesn't care. She's like over 100 years old. She's just like whatever.
This reminded me of like a female Witcher type character.
And the way I wanted to see a battle, like a full-on battle with her in the core lanes, because I was like, Bruna could hold her own.
It didn't happen.
And then when he killed her off page, I was like, my heart.
You're evil.
I actually like almost teared up when Leisha left to go to the other village. I was like, Bruna.
I felt bad for her dad. Like, just in general, I felt bad for
Ernie.
Like I felt so bad. I'm like, you're with a horrible person that openly cheats on you, doesn't hide it, and you let her beat on your children regularly.
And she wants to set up your daughter with the person, like the other, with that dude's son, and wants babies from him. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I like how Bruno was just like, you know why your mother's like that? I just spilled all the tea. I was like, I love Bruno so much. She was such a. That's like that whole part of the storyline. I
He
was
was
like,
the town
okay,
gossip.
I really like what Peter did there. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I can live in this
Yeah.
part of the story and make Alicia my main character.
Yeah.
She's just so much fun.
But that was the thing. I liked that part so much that I was just like, when they moved to Arlen and all this other crap, I was like, but I don't care. Go back to this.
The other main character. Actually, I still remember his name.
I still don't like.
He has such small POV.
Roger's quite insignificant. Like even in the later books, like he's got his fiddle, and it's like, okay.
I just kept on getting annoyed with his character. With them, I understand why they did, but they kept on referring to him as cripple. I get why they did, but I was just like, we get it.
Yeah.
That's that. We get it.
I thought he was Arlen for a moment. Like when we first met him.
Yeah.
I was like, is this Arlen?
That's what I thought.
And then we immediately jumped to Leisha right after, I think. And then we don't catch up to him until later on. I was like, who was this? Oh yeah, that was that one character that had that one chapter.
Yeah.
All those chapters ago.
Like also later on in the other books, like it kind of does that, like, oh, here's this person who's considered a quote cripple, but they are valuable to the society. I don't remember how much in the first book they talk about Jardir, and they talk about him and Amon when they're kids, or is that the second book?
Yeah,
that's the second book.
But it is, they do a lot more kind of showing like, okay, this is where they were in the first few books, here's where they're going, and like how they're, once again, these people like the Krasian guy, Amon, he was considered Kafit, basically just trash. And throughout the book, it's, or the series is, how he's still important to the world, and how, he has these point of views that these other creations don't. And it's like, how are you going to succeed at what you're doing if you don't have these other worldviews?
Yeah, there's at least one more of those characters too in the later books of like someone that's not like someone that's running the scenes from the background and letting everyone else think that they're having all the good ideas, but it's like like you knuckleheads aren't like thinking clearly.
Those are always the more interesting characters. I feel like the ones that are just quiet about it and just do it anyway.
I do have to give to Peter the author credit, because the characters were really memorable. Not all of them, but even like some of the side characters that they interact with leave a strong impression on you. And I really did enjoy that. I feel like for someone who doesn't read a ton of fantasy, this one is not too bad. Or where it's not like, I didn't feel like he ever info dumped on the reader, to my knowledge. I don't think he did. There may be some info heavy scenes, but I don't remember like
I feel like he did the opposite. He
of like a history of the world in one chapter. I was like, I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
And he kind of told you as the story built and moved along with the character. So I was like, I appreciate that at least. Because most fantasy authors would be like, chapter 2, here's the history of the world. Here's like 5 chapters of world building. Okay, now we'll get to a story. Okay, now we have to do some more world building. And info dump you again. Like you can actually enjoy and be with the characters and learn as they learn. So like I was like, okay, I appreciate that. So I'm not having.
I will never complain about info dumping because I read Mayfair Witches. That was a. I will never again.
Alicia, don't bring up Mayfair Witches. You know I'm Team Rowan and Lasher.
I'm okay with the show. The book was bad.
The show was horrible too.
Oh my god!
No, I highly don't recommend this show. Like it only gets good in the last 2 episodes.
3 seasons okayed already? I don't understand this.
Yeah, because Interview with the Vampire is like
was
goat
incredible. Yeah,
I can't wait for that to come back.
Oh my goodness! And now we have what's the other vampire? Armand.
Armand.
In the picture, I was like, oh. And Louis said that's the love of his life. I was like, oh. That's not gonna like this. It's just so soapy, and I'm here for it.
It's so great.
It's so good.
Oh my gosh. No, what I really like about this series is that Arlen is just like, this is what I'm gonna do. And throughout the series, that's what he's doing. He is
One
just
track mind.
like, yeah,
Is
he's
Arlen
just
like our
like,
main guy, or do we like get more
oh
big
yeah.
characters on the
I mean,
board too?
You get a few more characters on the board. Weirdly though, like you said, like Peter's gonna pull some characters from the history. Like I'll just say it. Like the girl that Arlen was playing kissy with before he ran away from his dad.
Oh, the one in the beginning?
Like she
Yeah.
comes back and becomes
What?
yeah.
She's
honestly,
awesome.
That whole scene was so
Such a random character.
Right?
Yeah,
That whole
you're like,
scene was
how
so
is he going to
awkward.
bring that back? And he does. He brings her back, and it's kind of like, and she's just kind of like, yeah, I want to watch the world burn.
Yeah, I mean, he
Yeah,
has to
good
bring
for
her
that.
back in the worst possible way. It's like, oh yeah, let's go back to this character. Guess what I'm gonna do to him? And then like, okay, we'll leave them for a bit, and then we'll come back to it. But one thing I like that's happening in the book right now is that Peter is at least giving us fan service and like coupling everyone up. Like,
Okay.
So I'm like, the romance person in me is like, oh, okay, I can.
Is it believable now, or are they just thrown together to throw together at this point?
No, it's definitely believable in my mind.
Okay.
It's definitely interesting because there's some pairings you're just kind of like, that seems a little strange, but like it definitely speaks that like even with someone, I guess, skipping ahead here, someone like Alicia, where, like their whole kind of thing about her and her lack of sexual experience, just kind of where it goes, where she turns it into a political thing. Like she definitely realizes kind of like how her power is being this quote, a desired woman throughout all these books and, throughout the society, like how she turns that into power and kind
Okay.
of wields that in a way that she wants to wield it.
Mhm.
You just told me on the series. I will
Yeah,
definitely
like
continue now.
I
and it's
think they said this in the chat. I feel like this would make a great like TV show.
Mhm.
yeah,
It would
like
be, like a very episodic, like 8-10 episode season TV show thing. I don't know.
Maybe. I feel like they would have to change like the way he structures the story.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel like it wouldn't work. I feel like it wouldn't work the
Yeah.
way he set it up. It would be too disjointed.
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like it might work.
But
You
look at how
do?
The Witcher's done. Like the first 2 seasons are very not linear.
Well,
And Henry
exactly. But I
Cavill's
mean, look
left
at
that
the first
show.
season of look at the first season of The Witcher, where you were just like, "What the hell is going on?" And then you're like,
I freaking loved it.
I like how
Exactly. You're
season
like,
2
"Oh, I
they
love
like
this.
said they were
How could
like
he?"
they're just like, yeah,
You
we
know.
realized the first season was kind of confusing. I was like, no duh.
Yeah. But I think that primes people now. Like you could probably get away with something a little bit better, or
Right.
doing that again, and people wouldn't be so like WTF.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna watch that show without Henry Cavill though. Sorry.
I don't
You've
know.
lost me after season 2. I'm done.
Hemsworth can take Henry
No.
Cavill's place?
No.
No, I'm sorry, but no.
Honestly, I think the show is gonna be fine because I feel like The Witcher is like maybe 1 or 2 more seasons because it's spinoff.
It's Netflix. It's got 1 more season and then they're gonna cancel it like they do all this.
I know, but it'll still be their number one. It'll still be the number 1 show when they cancel it.
Yeah.
Right. No.
Because the spinoff didn't do good. The Blood of Origins.
I heard it bombed. I haven't watched it
I
yet.
didn't even know there was a spinoff.
Yeah, Michelle Yeoh was in it. So I was like, that was at least on my radar. Then I heard it was bad. I was like, never mind.
Yeah,
I love Michelle Yeoh.
It didn't look like it fit the world. Like it looked like cosplay. Like
it did.
Well, it's supposed to be like way before there was monsters everywhere, and when like because in The Witcher they talk about like the conjunction of the spheres, like these worlds crossing over, where these planes of existence basically merging. So I wonder how it would work out. But yeah, because like even in just some bit that I saw, it was like oh, it was like Yaskier and some woman, like he was like telling some story or vice versa. I don't know, but it was just like, oh, it's like, oh, we're gonna look back from Yaskier. I don't care about that jackhole. I really don't.
I like their like romance though. They
He's
have a
there
cute
for comic
romance going on.
relief. That's it.
Yeah.
Honestly,
They've got
I
a
was
really
like,
cute
instead of
romance.
Yennefer, I was like, maybe Jaskier in The Witcher. I was like, that's an
Yennefer
interesting
needs to die.
pairing. I feel like they should have just finished The Witcher and then did spin-offs like Game of Thrones. Because I don't think The Witcher, like season 2 was kind of like, eh.
I didn't care for the Game of Thrones spinoff. I was just like, I made it maybe halfway through the season.
Game of Thrones burned me, so I was like, I'm not coming back.
Yeah, I didn't even make it through Game of Thrones TV series. I gave up after the Red Wedding. I was like, eh.
Well, honestly, that's when it really diverged from the book.
Mm-hmm.
What annoyed me with the spinoff was that they were doing time jumps and they weren't really explaining them. Like it was like, oh, 6 months has passed. Oh, a year or two has passed since the last episode, and you're just
then all of a sudden,
and then they changed the actors. Yeah,
older.
Yeah, and you're just like, wait, what? I did like, and there was just no rhyme or reason. It was like, oh, when the story gets interesting, we're gonna make another episode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there was like no explanation unless you read the book. And that's the thing, is like a lot of people that watched Game of Thrones never read the books.
And the Targaryens are a very interesting family because that's a lot of the I word.
They're keeping it in the family.
I mean, they really keep it in the family.
Yeah, gross family stuff.
You know, luckily Peter V. Brett doesn't touch on that too much.
Too much.
At least he finished the series.
Is it in there?
I mean, maybe the Crazians will marry a cousin here and there, but you know.
Okay,
well, that was normal for like looking.
That's normal for that time.
Right,
like,
right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was very normal to marry like your first cousin. Nowadays, you're just like, oh.
What's interesting to me is that, like I said, I read this series a number of years back, so I remember how it ends vaguely, but I have no idea from where I'm at now to where it ends. Like how much goes on, I don't remember.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these books are pretty chunky.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of like transition shock because I did the first 2 books on regular audio, and then Scribd only has the graphic audio for
I'm so sorry.
the next book. And so like I'm like, wait, like Roger or not Roger, like Arlen's like a yokel. Like, I mean, I guess you know, that makes sense. It's like, what's this? Where is this dialect coming from?
That's too funny. I could see that like in the first one or whatnot, just kind of like this kid that's just like country bumpkin. But especially later on, that's too funny.
Like, made him sound like kind of like an a-hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He sounded like a kid from like Georgia or something. Like he had that very like
Bruno
southern, like very drawl.
Arlen. Yeah. Bruno needed to meet Arlen, and his problems would have been solved.
Bruno in his life.
Bruno would have been like, "Shut up! How dare you run away?"
Bruno's like the evil fairy godmother that we all like need in our lives.
I will throw powder in your eyes to blind you for 2 days so you can't leave. That would be Bruno. I'm just happy this series is finished. Like,
yeah, that's always comforting when you start something and you're like, oh well, at least I know it's finished. So you know,
I can give romance writers their flowers because I was like, if they write a fantasy series, they're done with that series in like 3 to 5 years, or even shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just like people are like, oh, Jennifer Armentrout. It's like, George, you're still working on A Song of Ice and Fire? Hold my beer. Write 3
Don't even
series,
get me started
2
on
spin-offs,
series.
all 800 pages, and like finish it within 3 years. And like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
On to the next book.
Do you like those books?
I haven't read them.
I can't. I read the first one and I'm like, I'm out.
She
repeats herself a lot. Like she says, "Oh my gods" for everything, and I'm like, can we not?
I'm in my thriller. I'm really into reading more thrillers right now.
Me too.
I haven't been reading romance.
Thriller and then Harlequin, because Harlequin's short, and my brain can only handle so.
Yeah, I think I've like altered my gray matter in my brain or something because these longer books, I'm like, what are we doing here? Like,
why do these romances have to be 600 and 700 pages?
What's happening here?
Like the Lucy Score things we never got over. I was like, why is this book 16 hours on audio? Like, why?
Why is any romance over 500 pages? I can't.
No, it was like, Ryan, if you read the book, like you could tell like where she's setting up spin-off series and like other characters.
Dude, that's
He's
the
like,
thing.
okay,
Like,
we're
for
going to
me,
go to the casino. Here's other group of people. We're going to introduce them all, and they're going to have spin-off books in the future. And like, oh, we're going to meet all the different couples in this book too, and spend time with them. I'm like, oh my goodness.
See, and especially in romance, I can just not care at all about that stuff. Like when it comes to like sci-fi and fantasy, like if it's good, solid, like I said, in this series, it's like, dude, I just want to see Arlen do what he wants to do. Like I'm just in there for the adventure, for the ridiculousness of it. Like, and yeah, there's good story along the way, but same thing with like just some of these like epic sci-fi novels and stuff. Like one of those things where like Dune, yeah, I can get behind the first few books, and then it's just like, nope.
Dune
Even
made my
with
brain hurt.
my Sun Eater series, you know, I am all about that. Like
I'm so mad at him right now. Like that book series was gonna be 5, and now all of a sudden it's 7 or 8. I'm like, sir, please stop. Please, they're all 800 pages. Please stop. Please.
Hey,
stop.
it's not his fault. Paper shortages during COVID.
I know, but why do they have
no.
every damn book into 2 different books? It drives me insane. They do it all with all different types of fantasy. It drives me crazy.
At least he keeps the same perspective character all the way through. You know?
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
I just don't like Hadrian. I want to like throat punch him.
Oh yeah.
I'm just like, dude, shut up.
That's so
it's a little bit better, but I just love that he even admits like I'm the most melodramatic character in this story. Like he just flat out says that.
Yeah,
like,
when the main character actually has main character syndrome and like it's terrible, like
and he acknowledges he has it.
I just don't like when people are so uppity about it. They're like, this isn't just inspired by Dune. He took lines directly from Dune and put it in like, shut up. He took lines directly from Dune and put it in friggin' Empire of Silence. Stop. Like, stop pretending that it's like not inspired by Dune, because it sounds just like Dune, which is fine. But like, stop pretending that it's not.
Like people arguing if it's like inspired by Tolkien or something. I'm like,
yeah.
Or people calling people stupid because they think it's because people think of Name of the Wind with the first book. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. If you've read Name of the Wind and read this, it makes sense.
I'm not into reading series that I never know are going to be finished.
Yeah. Don't
I read Name of the Wind and that was it.
King Killer Chronicles until you know it's finished. Like it's not worth it.
No. I read the first one and I was like, all right, that was okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand why everybody's freaking out, but that's all right.
Hey, romance authors and YA authors, they get their stuffs done. Like if they're writing a series, they get those books out and then they're done. And then romance authors are like, oh, let me write 5 books a year. No biggie.
Yeah.
No
I just
biggie.
don't like the pretension when people talk about like science, like sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah, there's a lot of pretension in the readership about.
Oh, it's so annoying. I'm like, I can enjoy sci-fi and fantasy and enjoy a Harlequin romance, and that's fine. Like, stop it.
You gotta read some thrillers, man. I like people.
I have the writing retreat, so I want to read that one.
Oh, there's a good one. The Night Shift by Alex Finley. That's good. If you want really fast. Yeah. So it's like blockbuster murder, killed 3 girls and the store manager. Fast forward 20 years in the future, another murder like that happens at another shop in the town, an ice cream shop. And I think the 2 are connected. It does have multiple POVs, but I swear it reads so fast.
That's why I like Stephen St. James.
Chapters are like 2 or 3 pages.
Yeah.
But like it moves. And then I was like, oh man. I was actually sad what happened to some of the characters. I'm like, ooh. He got me on some of the twists. I didn't call the twist. Don't read Alice Feeney, though. Don't read Alice Feeney.
No, I tried, and I DNF'd.
I'm not going to say which one.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Alicia, I can
No
tell you
comment.
the spoiler. The twist in that one, I was like, really?
I
hate
yelled at
you.
the book. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was literally, legitimately angry. I think I threw it across the room. I was very angry.
It's a good twist. Like it's
I
like
was
based
very
on like,
angry.
and then there were none. So like that closed, isolated mystery type story, closed circle mystery. So grandmother says she's gonna die on her 80th birthday, so she gathers her whole family together to read her will, and then one by one, each family member starts to die. It's like that type of story, but the twist was like, oh, okay.
I just don't think the
It's
writing
really
style is
slow.
for me personally.
It's really slow. And you
Not
get a lot of
handle,
flashbacks.
like murder mystery.
You don't
At
even
all?
really see the murder. It's really you just like the character does a flashback of when she was a kid, and then you're like, oh wait, my dad's dead. Flashback to when I was a kid.
I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
unless it's
murder
an
mysteries
intrigue.
are just rough.
Yeah.
I only
don't
read
think
a
I've given
couple
them
by
try,
certain
though.
authors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you want one that doesn't involve like murder stuff like that, All the Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. That's a really good one. Oh my! The twists in that book, like the twists and turns that she takes you on.
But they're believable.
They're so believable, and they work.
Yeah.
What was that book we just read?
Which one?
What was that book a month or two ago?
The romance?
The romance. Yes, see, I've already completely blocked out the romance. I don't even. I was like,
year?
oh,
this time next
this
year.
time next year. Literally, I was sitting here like, what happened in that book? I hated it. What happened? I don't know.
I can never forget her. Her name's Minnie Cooper.
Oh gosh, there we go. And exactly how I'm like, this wasn't a bad book, but I will not remember anything about it. I literally could not. Like, I'm sitting here like, I hated it. What was it?
Welcome to reading romance. You read 100 of them a year at least, and
they all just like start blending together after like 6 months.
Oh my gosh!
That's why you break down the tropes.
Long-term memory.
Yeah, you just tell people the tropes, and people are like, "Oh yeah, that sounds good." You have to remember the characters
or when
and
they
what actually
tagline it,
happened.
and it's got nothing to do with the tagline, like where they call everything Game of Thrones and it's not Game of Thrones.
Right.
Makes me very, I'm like,
the next Game of Thrones fantasy.
The what was it? Rage of Dragons. They called it African Game of Thrones, and I'm like, it's not though.
It's good. Though.
It was a very good book, but it's not Game of Thrones.
And then there's Children of Blood and Bone, which I think people kind of hate that series now.
I liked the first book. I tried to read.
I like the second book.
Like, did you? Okay, we need to have a conversation because I have questions.
I just want them to get these adaptations going for these books.
I'm really curious, but I like the first one.
All right. Well, we're coming up on about an hour, so I think I'm gonna call it here. We talked about the book The Warded Man by Peter V. Brand.
Among other things.
Did you forget about the title of the book?
Which usually happens, so
yeah.
We're not
watching
on
the replay. Thanks for joining us. My next live author interview is going to be with author Mia Heitzelman, Tuesday, April 18th, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, and thanks for joining us. Have a good night, everyone.